You know that strange feeling when someone sits a little too close? Close enough that you feel their presence before they even say a word. That's exactly what happened to Mia that quiet evening, and trust me, she never saw his next confession coming. Mia wasn't expecting company at all. She had gone to the small lakeside cafe hoping for silence, the kind of silence that helps you sort out a long, exhausting week. The place was almost empty, just dim lamps, soft music, a breeze slipping in through the half-open windows. She chose a corner seat, far from anyone, and wrapped her hands around a warm cup of tea. She just wanted peace. But peace shifted the moment she heard footsteps approach her table. At first, she didn't look up. She assumed someone was just passing by. But the footsteps stopped, right beside her. Mia? She froze. She hadn't heard that voice in weeks. Gentle, low, familiar in a way she hadn't prepared for. Slowly, she lifted her eyes. It was Evan Williams, her coworker, her unexpected friend, the man who always seemed to understand her before she even explained herself. He looked tired, but warm, and he was smiling, that small, quiet smile he only gave when he wasn't sure he should be there. "I didn't know you came here," he said, softly. Mia blinked, surprised. "Evan, what are you doing here this late?" He glanced around the nearly empty cafe. "Same reason you are, probably. Just needed some air." She nodded, expecting him to walk away. Instead, he hesitated. "Do you mind if I sit?" Mia gestured to the chair across from her, the normal, polite place for someone to join a friend. But Evan didn't take that seat. He walked around her small table and sat right beside her, close enough that she felt a shift in the air, close enough that she heard his quiet breath, close enough that her heart forgot how to beat for a moment. She stiffened, not because she was afraid, but because she couldn't understand why he would sit so near, especially when the entire cafe was empty. Evan noticed her surprise. He didn't move away, but his voice lowered. "I wasn't planning to interrupt your night," he murmured, "but when I saw you here alone, I don't know, I felt like maybe I should sit with you." Mia tried to speak, but all she managed was a soft, confused, "Why?" Evan glanced at the table, then at her. The silence stretched, gentle but tense. It wasn't awkward, just heavy, like he was carrying something he hadn't said out loud yet. She watched his hands. They were clasped together, knuckles pale, like he was working up the courage to admit something difficult. "Evan," she whispered, "are you okay?" His breath shook the slightest bit. "That depends," he said. "Can I tell you something? And can you promise you won't pull away when I do?" Her heart thudded, not because she feared what he might reveal, but because she sensed it mattered deeply to him. She gave a small nod. Evan looked straight ahead for a moment, gathering strength, making him look more vulnerable than she had ever seen him. "When I saw you sitting here tonight," he said quietly, "something in me felt relieved." Mia frowned. "Relieved? Why?" He exhaled, the sound almost like a confession slipping out too soon. "Because I've been trying to find the right moment to talk to you, and I thought I had more time. But lately," he paused, voice tightening, "lately, I've been scared that if I don't say this now, I'll regret it." Mia felt her breath catch. He turned his head toward her, slowly, deliberately. Their shoulders almost touched now. "Mia," he whispered, "there's something I've been holding in, something you probably never noticed, and I don't know how you'll react when I tell you." Her pulse pounded louder in her ears. "Evan," she said, barely above a whisper, "what is it?" He swallowed. Then he said the first half of it, the part that made her entire world fall silent. I care about you more than I ever meant to." Her eyes widened, but before she could respond, he added quietly, "And that's not even the part I'm afraid to say." A soft tension filled the air, warm, trembling, impossible to ignore. Evan's gaze dropped to his hands, as if the next words were heavier than he expected. "Mia," he murmured, "there's one more thing, and it's the reason I sat this close." He lifted his eyes, meeting hers with a depth she had never seen before, and her heartbeat stumbled. Most people think they're ready to hear the truth, but Mia realized that night, nothing prepares you for the moment someone finally says what you always wondered but never dared to ask. Mia sat perfectly still. Evan was right beside her, close enough that she felt a quiet warmth radiating from him, close enough that she couldn't pretend his words were anything casual. He had just told her he cared about her more than he meant to, and now he was about to say something even deeper. The cafe was almost silent. Only the hum of soft music and the faint clinking of dishes carried through the room. Mia's fingers tightened around her cup. She didn't know what he would say next, but her heart already felt suspended in midair. Evan exhaled shakily. "I didn't just come here to clear my head," he said. "I came here because I've been feeling off, different." He paused. "Ever since that night after work, the night you stayed late helping me finish those reports." She remembered. It had been a long, tiring evening. They had laughed about something silly, and for a split second, she had noticed the way he looked at her, softer than usual, like he was memorizing her without meaning to. But she brushed it off. Now she wondered if she shouldn't have. "What about that night?" she asked, quietly. Evan's voice lowered. "When you left, I realized I didn't want the night to end." Mia's breath caught. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't teasing. He was telling the truth, raw and uncertain. "And since then," he continued, "every time I see you, I feel something I'm not supposed to feel." She swallowed. "Why not supposed to?" He let out a soft laugh, the kind people make when they're both embarrassed and painfully honest. "Because we work together," he said. "Because I didn't want to make things uncomfortable for you." He hesitated. "And because I wasn't sure if you ever saw me that way." Mia's chest tightened. She didn't know what to say. She wasn't even sure what she felt. Evan had always been kind, steady, thoughtful, the kind of presence that made everything feel calmer. But she never imagined he quietly held all this inside. Evan rubbed the back of his neck. "And Mia, I sat close because I knew that if I took the seat across from you, I would lose the courage to say any of this." She looked at him, really looked at him. His shoulders were tense, his eyes were careful, waiting for her to react. His whole expression said one thing: "Please don't pull away." "Evan," she whispered, "this is a lot. I know. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overwhelm you." She shook her head gently. "You're not overwhelming me. I didn't expect it." His eyes softened. "I didn't expect it either." Mia's heart thudded. "Then why tell me now?" He turned toward her slightly, his shoulder brushing hers. A small, delicate touch, but enough to send a quiet, trembling warmth through her. "Because," he said, voice barely above a breath, "you've been distant lately, and I didn't know if it was because you were busy or because you felt me pulling toward you." Her lips parted. She hadn't been distant on purpose. She had simply been overwhelmed with work and life. But his voice held something deeper, something fragile. "I thought maybe," he continued, "you noticed how I feel, and it made you uncomfortable." Mia shook her head quickly. "No, Evan, I didn't know. Really. I just had a lot going on." He let out a soft sigh of relief, but only partly. There was still tension in his shoulders, like he was waiting for the real answer, the one he was afraid of. The one he was afraid of. "Mia," he said, "I'm not expecting anything from you. I just needed you to know. I needed to stop pretending." She looked down at their hands, his resting quietly on his knee, hers wrapped around her cup. So close. Not touching, but close enough that her heart fluttered at the thought. She spoke softly. "Evan, I don't know what to say yet." "You don't have to decide anything tonight," he replied gently. "I'm not asking you to." His voice dropped lower. "I just want you to be honest with me. Do you feel anything at all? Even a little?" The question hung between them like suspended breath. Mia's heart pounded. Did she? She wasn't sure, not fully, but she knew one thing. The way she felt sitting here beside him wasn't nothing. She lifted her eyes to his. "I feel," her voice trembled, "something. I don't know what it means yet, but it's there." Evan's shoulders eased, even if the uncertainty didn't disappear. A fragile hope flickered in his expression, small but real. He nodded slowly. "Thank you. That's more than I expected." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The world around them seemed to soften, like everything was waiting for the next step, the next breath. Then Evan leaned back the slightest bit, eyes searching hers gently. "Mia," he said, "there's one more thing I need to tell you, and it might change how you see everything." Her heartbeat stumbled again. There are moments when time slows down, not because anything dramatic happens, but because you know the next words could change everything. That's exactly how Mia felt when Evan said he had one more thing to tell her. Mia steadied her breath. Evan was sitting close enough that she could sense his nerves, feel the tension in his shoulders, see the quiet fear in his eyes. "What is it?" she whispered. He didn't look away, but he did hesitate, long enough that Mia felt her heart start to race again. "I didn't tell you the full reason I've been distant lately," he said softly. Mia frowned. "I thought you said it was because you were unsure how I felt." "It was," he murmured, "but there's more." The cafe felt even quieter. The soft music faded into the background. The world seemed to shrink to just the two of them and the unspoken truth hanging between them. "Evan," she said gently, "you can tell me." He inhaled deeply, as if preparing himself. "Do you remember last month," he asked, "when I suddenly stopped staying late at work, when I didn't join the team outings anymore?" She nodded slowly. She had noticed, but she assumed he just needed rest. Evan ran a hand through his hair. "It wasn't because I was tired. It was because I was afraid I was getting too attached to you." Mia blinked. He pressed on, voice trembling slightly. "I thought distancing myself would help me get rid of these feelings. I thought maybe space would fix everything." A soft ache formed in her chest. She had no idea he had been carrying this alone. "But," he continued, "the more I tried to stay away, the worse it got." Mia swallowed, emotions tightening in her throat. She never imagined her presence affected him like that. He gave a small, shaky laugh. "At one point, I couldn't even look at your desk without feeling something I couldn't explain." Mia felt her cheeks warm, but she stayed quiet, letting him speak. "And then," he said, "when I walked in and saw you sitting here, it just hit me." Her heartbeat quickened. "What hit you?" Evan turned slightly, shoulders brushing hers again, this time intentionally, this time without pulling back. "That I don't want distance." He paused, eyes steady. "I want the opposite." Mia felt her breath catch. Evan lifted a hand halfway, as if he wanted to reach for hers, but wasn't sure if he should. "I know this is sudden," he whispered, And I know you're still figuring out how you feel. But Mia, I can't pretend anymore. Not with you." Her chest tightened with a complicated mix of warmth and fear. She wasn't afraid of him. She was afraid of what this meant, of how fast things were shifting. She looked at him carefully. "What do you want, Evan? Truly?" He exhaled like he'd been waiting for that question. "I want to be someone you can trust," he said. "I want to be someone who doesn't make you second-guess yourself." He paused. "And I want a chance, just a chance, to see where this could go." Mia felt the sincerity in every word. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't forced, it was real. But part of her still trembled. "Evan," she whispered, "this is a lot to take in." "I know," he murmured, "and I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight." He brushed his thumb along the edge of his sleeve, a nervous habit she had seen before. "I just needed you to know what's been happening in my head. I didn't want you thinking you did something wrong." Her heart softened. "You never made me think that." He nodded slowly, relieved. For a moment, silence settled again. A gentle, tender silence, the kind that feels full of possibilities. Mia looked down at her hands. Her pulse was fluttering. Her thoughts were tangled. She wasn't sure if she was ready for all of this, but she also couldn't deny the quiet truth forming in her chest, the truth that being near him felt safe in a way she didn't expect. Evan leaned forward slightly, voice softer than before. "Mia," he said, "there's something else I want to ask you." She lifted her eyes, startled. "What is it?" He paused, not from fear this time, but from the weight of what he was about to say. "Would it overwhelm you," he asked carefully, "if I told you that I didn't just fall for you by accident, but that I've been fighting it for months?" Her breath hitched. Months? She hadn't expected that, not even close. Everything inside her went still. Sometimes the truth doesn't fall like a storm. It falls like a quiet snowfall, gentle but heavy enough to cover everything you thought you understood. That's how Mia felt when Evan admitted he'd been fighting his feelings for months. For a moment, Mia couldn't speak. Months. He had been carrying this for months. Evan watched her carefully, not pressuring her, not pushing closer, just waiting with a kind of nervous hope that made her chest ache. "Mia," he said softly, "I'm sorry if that was too much." She shook her head slowly. "No, it's just surprising. I didn't know." He gave a small, sad smile. "That's because I tried really hard to hide it." "Why?" she asked gently. He looked down at his hands. "I thought telling you would complicate things. I didn't want to risk making you uncomfortable. You mattered too much to me for that." The sincerity in his voice made something warm unfold inside her. "But I also knew," he continued, "that the longer I kept pretending, the more distance there would be between us, even if I didn't want that." Mia's voice softened. "You thought you were protecting me, but you were hurting yourself." He laughed under his breath. "Yeah, I guess I was." She hesitated, then asked quietly, "When did it start?" He lifted his eyes, thoughtful. "I think it started long before I admitted it to myself, but the moment I really knew was the day you defended me in that meeting." Mia blinked. "That was nothing. I just told the truth." "It wasn't nothing to me," he said firmly. "Everyone else dismissed my idea. You didn't. You looked at me like my thoughts mattered." He paused. That stayed with me. Mia felt her heart twist gently. She remembered that day clearly, how frustrated Evan had been, how unfairly his opinion had been brushed aside. She hadn't defended him for any special reason. She just believed in fairness. But she never imagined it had meant that much to him. Evan's voice softened again. "After that, Every time you walked into a room, everything felt a little lighter. I tried ignoring it, tried convincing myself it was just a phase," he sighed. But it wasn't. Mia looked down, processing everything. It felt strange, hearing someone describe the moments she barely remembered, moments that had been casual to her, but secretly important to him. "Evan," she murmured, "I don't want you feeling like you've been carrying this alone." His shoulders eased slightly. "I know. That's why I told you. I didn't want this to be something hidden between us anymore." A soft silence settled, warm and gentle. Mia took a quiet breath. "I don't know exactly where I stand yet," she admitted, "but I do know I don't want distance either." His eyes lifted instantly, hope flickering across his face. "You don't?" he asked softly. She shook her head. "I wouldn't be sitting here if I did." The relief that washed over him was unmistakable. He didn't smile big. Evan never did, but his expression softened in a way that felt safe and real. Then his voice lowered again. "Mia, can I ask you something without scaring you off?" She gave a small nod. "You can ask." He hesitated, just enough to show how much the question mattered. "If I asked for a chance to show you what this could be," he whispered, "would that be too much?" Her breath caught, not because she felt pressured, but because she felt the weight of the question. It wasn't a demand, it wasn't an expectation. It was a gentle, vulnerable hope. She stared at her hands for a moment. Her heart was racing softly, not in fear, but in uncertainty, in possibility. "I don't know if I'm ready yet," she said honestly. Evan nodded immediately. "I understand. But," she added quietly, "I'm not saying no." That made him pause. Her words settled in the air like a spark, small but bright. He turned slightly closer, his voice a trembling whisper. "Mia, that's more than I expected tonight." She felt her cheeks warm again. She wasn't sure how this night had changed so quickly. She wasn't sure how one quiet cafe and one unexpected conversation had opened a door she didn't even know was there. But she did know one thing: she didn't feel like pulling away from him. Evan studied her expression, gentle and careful. "There's one last thing I want to say tonight," he murmured. Her heart flipped. "What is it?" she asked. He exhaled, the kind of breath someone takes before stepping into unfamiliar territory. "If you ever decide you're ready," he said softly, "I want to be someone who makes your life feel steadier, not heavier." Mia felt something warm bloom in her chest, something she wasn't ready to name yet, but couldn't ignore. Before she could respond, Evan looked down, his voice barely audible. "And I know it might sound strange, but there's something that's been bothering me, something I haven't told you yet." He swallowed. "It's about why I've been scared lately." Mia's pulse quickened. "What scared you, Evan?" she asked gently. He lifted his eyes, vulnerable, complicated, uncertain. "That day last week," he whispered, "when I saw you talking with someone, something hit me that I didn't expect at all." Her breath stilled. Sometimes the moment that scares you the most isn't when someone walks away, it's when you realize you don't want them to. That was the fear Evan had been carrying, and Mia was finally about to hear it. Mia felt her heart beat quiet and sharpen at the same time. Evan's eyes were steady, but there was something fragile in them, something that told her this confession wasn't light. "What happened last week?" she asked softly. Evan hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "I saw you outside the office," he said. "You were standing near the parking lot, and you were talking to Daniel." Mia blinked. Daniel, their coworker, friendly, cheerful, harmless. "Yes," she said, confused. "He was asking about a project deadline." Evan nodded. "I know, I figured that out later." He rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "But for a moment, I thought something else." Mia tilted her head gently. What did you think?" He looked down, voice low and honest. "I thought he was someone you liked." Mia felt a soft ache in her chest, not because she felt guilty, but because she knew how much it must have taken for him to admit that. "And I know I had no right to feel that way," Evan continued. "I had no claim on you. We weren't anything. But when I saw you laughing with him, something inside me just—" He stopped, searching for the right word. "Dropped." Mia's breath softened. She had laughed that day, yes, but not because of anything meaningful. Just a silly comment Daniel made, nothing more. Evan leaned back slightly, not pulling away from her, but giving her space, as if he was afraid he had already said too much. "That's when I realized something," he said. "When you care about someone, really care, it doesn't matter whether you planned to or not. It just happens, and it scares you." Mia felt warmth rise slowly through her chest. Soft, steady, unexpected. She didn't speak. She wanted to give him room to finish. Evan looked up, the vulnerability unmistakable. "That moment made me realize I couldn't keep pretending," he whispered. "I couldn't keep acting like I didn't feel anything, because the truth is, I feel too much." Mia's breath hitched. The honesty in his voice wasn't loud. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that reaches deeper. She placed her cup down gently. Her voice softened. "Evan, you weren't imagining anything. Daniel and I are just coworkers, that's all." He nodded, relief flickering in his expression, but he didn't assume anything more. "And Evan," she added, "I wish you had talked to me sooner. Not because I would have known what to do, but because you didn't have to carry all this alone." His shoulders lowered, the tension melting slowly. "I didn't want to burden you," he said. "I didn't want to complicate your life." Mia offered a warm, gentle smile. "You weren't a burden." He blinked, almost surprised. "Mia." She looked down for a moment, gathering her own thoughts, thoughts that had been quietly forming ever since he sat beside her. Then she lifted her eyes. "I may not know exactly where I stand yet," she said softly, "but tonight, something feels different." She took a small breath. "I don't feel like running away from this." The shift in Evan's expression was subtle but unmistakable. A soft, quiet hope blooming behind his eyes. "I'm not asking for an answer," he whispered. "I'm only asking for a chance." Mia nodded slowly. "And I'm willing to explore that chance." He exhaled, a shaky breath of relief, warmth, and disbelief all at once. They sat in silence for a moment, a new kind of silence, not heavy or confused, but gentle, like the beginning of something they were both afraid to name too soon. Evan leaned slightly closer, not touching her yet, but near enough that she felt the warmth again. "Mia," he said quietly, "thank you for not shutting me out." She smiled softly. "You didn't give me a reason to." The cafe was nearly empty now, the night deepening outside, the soft lights glowing warmly on their faces. Mia felt something subtle shift inside her, a calm, fragile certainty that hadn't been there before. She wasn't making promises. She wasn't rushing her feelings, but she was opening a door, and somehow that felt right. Evan stood slowly, offering his hand, not demanding, not assuming, just asking. "May I walk you to your car?" he asked gently. Mia looked at his hand, steady, patient, hopeful. Then she slipped her hand into his, feeling a soft warmth bloom from the simple touch. "Yes," she whispered, "I'd like that." As they walked out together, side by side, Mia realized something almost quietly shocking. Sometimes the scariest truths lead to the most peaceful beginnings, and tonight felt like one.